Welcome to the first content video for data analytics for decision making. So this is topic 1 and our first module, topic 1A, just looking at an introduction to data analytics, big data, some terminology that'll set us up for the rest of the course. Looking at the outline for topic 1, as I said, introduction, I'm going to introduce the idea of variables, data, we'll talk about what they mean. Then in module 2, we're going to look at graphical descriptive techniques, they're just graphs, visual displays, as well as looking at summary statistics or descriptive statistics in module C. And finally, we'll round out the important role of ethics and how that plays through entirety of the course and all data analytics that you might do. So let's get into this introduction though. Talked a bit about the welcome video, kind of about where we're going, informing our decision making as managers using our data analytics, data driven we talked about. And let's just have a look at what this is all about. Well, we've got data, that's the starting point. And businesses all over the world now have huge amounts of data. But having tons and tons of rows of customer information or sales data, accounting information, that's not useful on its own if you don't turn it into information. Now, information is data that's been transformed, that's been analyzed such that it is useful for decision making. So maybe you have analyzed all of that sales data and found out that the best way that you advertise your business is actually through radio. Not TV, not online, but that's information. You can then use that to inform decision making. But just lines and lines of data, that's not the same. It's not as informative. So we're trying to change data into information that can help us make decisions through analysis. And that's the data analytics, the analysis. That green box is what this subject is all about. To give you some sort of ideas of the kinds of questions we're going to be looking at, and they're everywhere, how can we make sense out of all this data? Are there any patterns in the data? Increasing trends over time of cost? Did they just occur by chance? Or is it something systematic that you've had product errors, product flaws? How do we differentiate valid from flawed claims? Look at hypothesis testing. Are there any relationships between two different pieces of data? Again, like advertising, sales, are there any relationships there? All sorts of questions, and these are the kinds of questions that we're looking at answering in this course. But wait, there's more. So how do we convert survey results into a useful graph? So we'll be looking at that in the next topic with graphical descriptive techniques. Another specific example might be based on past data, so we're informed by what's happened in the past, how likely is it that we will sell more than 100 laptops each week? So the data is just the amount of sales every day in history, but that's just data. So we're going to transform this into information and say, how likely is it that we'll sell more than 100 laptops this week? And that can help us understand how much stock we need to have on hand, ready to sell and available to sell. Do you want to know your customers better? As managers, I hope everyone jumped up and said, yes, absolutely. We do want to know our customers better. And again, the analytics, the analysis you're going to learn in this course, you can use that on data that you gather about your customers to convert that into information to help you make decisions, understand them better, serve your customers better. And there's still more, specifically, are sales influenced by advertising? If so, what is the relationship? Specifically, what's the relationship so we know how that happens? If you get given some information, the median level of customer satisfaction is this. How do you interpret that? Again, you'll learn how to do that. And in fact, that will be in Module 1C. So that will be in 2 videos' time where you'll learn about how to interpret the median. How can I test if my product labels are misleading? We say it has a certain amount of, for example, an active compound in a drug, or a certain amount of grams of food in a can or a bag. How do we test to make sure that we're truly supplying the customer what we say we are? So all of these questions and more, they're the motivation for this subject. So I hope you can start to see how varied, how interesting some of this work's going to be. So just to go back a step, any tips that I have for you? Well, the first one is you've got to practice. You've got to practice, practice, and practice. But don't focus on, in Excel, I click here, then I click there. Right? Focus on understanding the underlying technique. That is what is going to help you in the exam, that is what is going to help you as managers going forward. Now look, I understand many students find, numbers, statistics, data analytics sort of a bit scary and difficult initially, but if you practice and practice, then you'll get there. And we have computers, we have Excel to do all of the calculations for us. So it's not really too scary from a calculation point of view. It really is a course more about understanding the technique, directing the computer to do what we want, being able to interpret the output. That's what all of this is about. So I hope you really find it interesting, challenging, and rewarding how it can sort of help you guide your decision making with better informed, data-driven approaches. One other tip, logic checks. Always do this, always with your analysis. We all make mistakes, myself included. The only question is, will you notice your mistake first and fix it before everybody else knows? Or are other people going to notice and say, hey, you made a mistake, or it's not very good? So it's all about noticing the mistakes yourself first and fixing them before anyone else knows. For example, you run a model, you do something, you do some of the analysis, and it comes out with an answer. The recommended quantity is -4. Excuse me? What does -4 mean? You can't have -4 as a quantity. It must be a positive number. So you know that somewhere there was an error. So now you go back and fix it before anyone sees the problem. And often you'll find that if you make a mistake, it'll come up with a really silly, strange answer that if you apply a logic check, you can realize, oh, something's wrong here. Let me go back, I'll fix it. No one will ever know that I made a mistake, and they'll all think that I never ever make mistakes, which is not true, but you catch them before anybody else sees them. Another example, this idea of negative again, if you say the price that you should charge is -$2.50, again, that's ridiculous. It can't be true. So apply those logic checks.